Alright troops, it's your man Chris Scullion from TitledHack.com with another review roundup for your viewing pleasure. Another 10 games on offer for you today. Another bunch of Switch games, but also this time some PS4, Xbox One and even mobile stuff for you to see. This is the stuff I've been playing recently, what I think of it and whether I reckon it's worth a go. As ever, these are unscripted, as if my stuttering and mumbling doesn't make that obvious enough, and yeah, so hopefully you enjoy, and let's get cracking. First up is Tallowmere, kind of roguelike platformer action type game on the Switch. It's an interesting one. I don't usually like roguelike type games, and I usually don't like procedurally generated ones, and this is both, so right away it kind of was two strikes for me, but it's quite good fun. After a while, once you get used to it, it's pretty. The idea of it's pretty basic. You're basically working your way through numerous floors of this world and killing enemies, collecting keys, unlocking doors to the next area. Essentially, and you just kind of do this over and over, and facing progressively more difficult enemies as you go along. And along the way, they drop random loot, and you can find random loot in treasure chests and the like, and this loot has like a kind of 7-star rating system depending on how good it is, and each weapon or item you pick up has different properties. Some of them like there's a kind of sword which lets you teleport every time you swing it, so every time you swing it it kind of instantly teleports you to the nearest enemy as an attack, which is good in some ways but also tricky in others, because if you've got an enemy who's in a really tight space with spikes surrounding them and you try and attack them, it'll teleport you right into the spikes, so you need to be careful with that. And yeah, as it goes along, obviously the equipment you have gets progressively stronger and the enemies you face get progressively stronger. It can be a little bit unbalanced. There are times where I will find there got to the point, as you can see in this video, where I had a lot more powerful weapons than the level I was on may have kind of suited, so it gets to the point where although for the most part the game has a reasonable degree of difficulty to it, if you've got the right equipment with lots of health regeneration and powerful weapons and this teleporting sword and stuff like that, it gets to the point where you can actually fairly easily plough through kind of chunks of the game without too much trouble, because you know even if you take a bit of damage you can back off a bit, and the damage will kind of heal itself. So there's definitely some balancing issues there, especially when this is what happens when you've got a kind of procedurally generated game. Some playthroughs I did were hard as nails because I could never find the stuff I needed. Some, like this one you're watching, were like extremely easy because the luck of the draw is it's just that I ended up in levels that gave me ridiculously powerful stuff and kind of ended up ploughing through it quite easily. So with that, I mean, you take that into account, but otherwise it's fun enough. It's not groundbreaking or genre defining. You can tell it looks quite basic. It's pretty simplistic looking, but for the most part it was okay. It passed the time. It passed a good hour-long train journey I had recently. I didn't really have an inclination to turn it off, which is always a good thing. But yeah, there's not a hell of a lot to it. What you see here is what you pretty much get. And that's Tallowmere. Decent, not a bad wee game. Up next is Rockin' Racing Off-Road DX, also on the Switch, although it's been on other systems over the years. This is just the latest version on the Switch. It's a top-down racing game, similar to old games like Super Sprint, and more notably Iron Man Stewart's Super Off-Road, hence the name Rockin' Racing Off-Road DX. Super Off-Road was a game on the Mega Drive, NES and stuff like that, and it looked pretty much like this, but 8/16-bit visuals where you choose a car, you drive around a track and a series of laps, and you've got all these kind of jumps and stuff that to take into account, because if you go off a jump in a weird angle then your car will spin round in the air and you'll be stuffed when you land, basically. So that's the general gist of it. All the tracks fit on one screen, as you can see here, and it's fun. It's divisive. There are a lot of people who maybe aren't into this sort of thing because it's very, very old school. If you're a into your Forzas and Mario Karts, like modern Mario Karts and stuff like that, this might seem prehistoric to you, but to people my age who remember this sort of thing, it's simple pleasures. I mean, there's not a lot to it visually, but there's also not a lot to it in terms of gameplay, and that can sometimes be a good thing because you can just put the foot down and learn the nuances of it. There's still quite a wee bit to learn in terms of how to brake and taking jumps perfectly without landing totally off centre. There's some jumps that can really throw you if you don't approach them properly, and can have you turning backwards and hitting tyre walls and stuff like that. So it's slightly deceiving. It looks a bit easier than it maybe actually is, but still I enjoyed it. I know from previous releases of the game there are some people who don't enjoy it, but each to their own. Personally, it's my kind of thing. If you like the look of an old school kind of racing game, this is a good one to go for. It's got quite a lot of tracks in it, and it's got loads of 5 different unlockable cars, and yeah, I think it's fun. It's harmless, basically. It's a fun wee game. It's not going to change anyone's life, but it's fine. Following that is Aces of the Luftwaffe Squadron on the Switch. It's a vertical scrolling shooting game set in World War II, where you're a bunch of ace US fighter pilots fighting the Germans, but it turns out the Germans have been kind of using alien technology, so you end up fighting UFOs and stuff like that, which is quite cool. It's different from a normal, well, it's not massively different from a normal vertical shooter, but it does have a few little quirks that you maybe not see in other shooting games. You're accompanied by 3 co-pilots, and as they take damage they drop out, and after a while and then they come back. So your ship, as it were, actually has quite a big hitbox. Your ship itself doesn't, but you're surrounded by 3 other planes, and they take damage as well. So you're trying to kind of avoid all 4 of you taking damage at the same time, and that can because if they set it out, then your firepower gets reduced a bit. There's also occasional kind of mini challenges. At one point, like you might have to follow an enemy without taking 3 hits or something. Like a large boss, you might have to keep on it without taking a certain number of hits, or you might have to throw down supplies by hovering your plane over a certain area for a few seconds at a time, and you might have to do that a number of times to pass the mission. Or one of your co-pilots might suddenly fall asleep for reasons, and you have to defend them from enemies while they recover. So that's quite cool. That mixes it up a bit and makes it less a case of taping down the fire button and just moving around. You actually have to, there's a tiny wee bit of strategy involved there, which is quite cool. Control of your ship is really good. It's analog control, but there's quite a lot of range there. It goes from like crawlingly slow to zooming right around the screen really quickly, so there's a lot of control there. The only thing that I found kind of off-putting is the voice acting is really bad. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head where it was developed, but obviously it's somewhere in Europe. It sounds like a German or Dutch game or something like that. It's that kind of thing, and all the pilots are supposed to be American, but none of them have American accents. They all sound like German people putting on American accents, and it's really, really off-putting. So that's slightly disappointing. The voice acting is really weak, but that aside, it's fun. I enjoyed it more than I've enjoyed most vertical scrolling shooters on the Switch, and there are a lot. So this is actually quite a cool wee game to check out. Well worth a look, I would say. Following that is Antiquia Lost, also on the Switch. This is a Kemco RPG. Kemco has been churning out RPGs like nobody's business on the Switch. These have all been mobile games, all these RPGs, and Kemco's been porting them to the Switch. And like all the other ones, it's average. You can tell by looking at it. It's based on. It's designed to look like old 8-bit and 16-bit, well, specifically 16-bit RPGs. But there's lots in here that's just not really, doesn't really grab you. Doesn't really grab me, at least. The story is pretty generic. The twist is that you're accompanied by a girl who's made out of slime, and she levels up by eating gems that are lying on dead enemies. So instead of her leveling up through experience, she levels up by eating gems as you do. But other than that, it's a fairly standard RPG. It doesn't have much of a tutorial, so if you're new to RPGs, this isn't really the one to start with. Start with something else. If you are kind of experienced with RPGs, then it's so generic that you'll have seen all this kind of stuff a million times before, and therefore it's not really going to blow your mind either. So I'm not really sure who it's aimed at. It overdoes it a bit with every 2 minutes, it seems, it comes up with a little screen, a little message saying moving on to the next part of the adventure, as if like just to keep you right, to make you reassure you that you're doing the right thing. It's just, it comes up far too often. Just doesn't do it for me, I'm sorry. It might appeal to some people. It's like, I get they're trying to recreate the old school look, but even old RPGs had better character animations than this. During some cutscenes and stuff, they just shake and move to the side and stuff. They haven't put an animation of characters during cutscenes, which is really off-putting. But yeah, there we go, that's Antiquia Lost. It's got microtransactions as well, which is a bit sneaky, although it's not as bad as it was a mobile game first, and it had loads of microtransactions, and they've dialed it down a bit. Now it's just stuff like, you can buy a thing that lets you skip, lets you dodge random encounters, and you can buy a thing that lets you increase your experience and stuff like that, but that's about it. It's still a bit cheeky to have it in there, so, but there you go, that's Antiquia Lost on Switch. Yeah, I'm not fussed about this one. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Then it's Ittle Dew 2 Plus on the Switch. It took me ages to get that joke, because us Scots and Brits say Dew instead of do, like they do in America. So it's Ittle Dew, as in, that's good enough, Ittle Dew, ha ha ha, get it. Ittle Dew 2 Plus is a, as you can tell, it's a kind of Zelda style adventure game where you're a girl called Ittle, who's accompanied by a kind of fox dog thing, and you've basically landed on an island and you need to gather 8 pieces of raft in order to build said raft and then leave the island. So you go to different dungeons to get the raft pieces and explore this kind of really large open world, which looks really nice. You can tell by looking at it, it's really nicely crafted. It looks the part. The art design is really cool. The dialogue that appears every now and then is actually genuinely quite funny. It's well written. It can be a bit on the tricky side for people who maybe aren't used to Zelda style games, especially early on when you don't have a lot of abilities. Her initial kind of attack with the wee stick thing she's got is really, the range is really short, so you need to get properly stuck into enemies to do damage, and a lot of them fire shots without much warning. So there's a lot of situations early on in the game where you can run up to an enemy and try and hit them, and before you know it you've got half your health gone because you're getting hit by shots you don't see coming. But once you kind of get past that and start doing some of the dungeons and gaining new abilities and stuff like that, it becomes, it's one of these games that grows over time and gets better and better as you play through it. I've really enjoyed it. It's obviously a step down from what you would expect from a proper Zelda game or something of that ilk, but for what it is, it passed the time for me, and I certainly enjoyed playing through it. Yeah, I would recommend it if you're craving kind of old school Zelda, Link to the Past style stuff, and there isn't really anything on Switch that scratches that itch yet. Then I suppose you could say it'll do too. It'll do for now. While waiting for something similar to come, so that's good. I like this one, so get stuck in. Moving away from Switch for a wee while, let's go to the PS4 with It's Quiz Time. Lock up your kids, motherfuckers, it's quiz time. It's Quiz Time is a quiz game, you'll be stunned to find out, with something like 29,000 questions at the last time I checked in. When it starts up it says, the kind of quiz host appears and says hello, gathering 4,000 plus categories and 29,000 plus questions, and then the game starts. So there's a lot of questions here. It's up to 8 players can play locally or online using the mobile app that you can kind of download, and that syncs up with the game. You put in the room number and then your app kind of syncs up with the game, so you get the questions on your phone and you can answer like that, so that's quite cool. So you can play 8-player games fairly easily at parties if everyone's got their phone with them, and who wouldn't in this day and age, who wouldn't? Personally, I've been more addicted to the solo mode. There's a solo quiz battle thing, which you're seeing the footage of here, where you're given 30 questions, and you need to answer as many of them correctly as you can, as quickly as you can. If you answer them instantly, you get 500 points. And you pick a specialist subject at the start, and if you answer questions from that correctly, you get an extra 150 points. And the aim is to get as many questions right by the end as possible. But if you get one wrong, you also lose points. And again, if you're trying to spam it to get loads of points really quickly, if you get a question wrong and it would have been worth 500, you lose 500. So you can't just keep kind of trying to cheat the system. It's got a leaderboard, and I think you'll find I'm currently number 7 in the world at the old It's Quiz Time leaderboard, and there's up more than 1,000 names on it, so don't get snarky and say it's because no one plays it. There's a decent number there, so your man Scullion's got a wee bit of a brain box, I think you'll find. I'm enjoying It's Quiz Time. There's also a mode I haven't tried yet, because I don't do much streaming, but there's a streaming mode where it incorporates Twitch and YouTube and the other one, which I always forget. If you plug a PlayStation camera into your face, not into it but pointing at it, you can stream a quiz to up to 10,000 people, and they can all play along using their phones or what have you, which is a really cool idea if it works. To be honest, I haven't tried that bit, but everything else, the local multiplayer works fine, and I'm really finding myself addicted to the single player quiz mode. I'm adamant I'm going to make it to top of the leaderboard, so keep an eye on Twitter for that, because that's definitely going to happen at some point. But yeah, it's Quiz Time on PS4. It's pretty bare bones isn't the word, because there's a decent level of presentation there, but there's some weird. The quiz master, she reads all the questions out, so because there's 29,000 questions, obviously nobody sat there and recorded everything, so they've got a kind of auto speaking, one of these robot things that automatically read what's written down for them, and for the most part it's okay, but occasionally she'll struggle with some punctuation and say things really weird, or she'll get numbers and dates mixed up, so if something was in the year 1998, she might say 1998. She regularly refers to it. She calls you by your username, your PlayStation ID, and mine's is Scully 1888, but she always calls me Scully 1888, which is quite off-putting. Why won't she love me? But it's Quiz Time. I've been enjoying it. It's obviously an acquired taste, but if it's a taste that you acquire, you'll want to acquire this pronto. It's a good one. Up next, the big controversial one, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, what can be said about that? Let me have a drink of Iron Brew before we get to this one. Right. A lot has been said about Battlefront 2, and if you've been following the world of gaming, you already know all the stuff about loot boxes and EA's greed, and how it was reported on the BBC website, and how it led to another big scandal about loot boxes, and suddenly everyone was saying, "What? Wait a minute, loot boxes are an absolute disgrace, this is scandalous," and everyone was calling for heads, and EA were being boycotted and being told they're the worst people in the world and everything, etc, etc. With all that died down, and having played it with a kind of normal head on, without trying to jump to without trying to look for a scandal all over the place, I've been enjoying Star Wars Battlefront 2. I've put 30 or 40 hours into it, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I haven't spent a single penny on any loot boxes or loot crates or anything like that. Other than the game itself, I have not spent a single penny. So any claims that the game is impossible to play without chucking more money at it, that's a bit of an exaggeration, to be fair. There's enough here that you can play without feeling that you are in any way need to spend more money, if that makes sense. You can buy the base game and get enough out of it without feeling the need to keep forking into it. It's got a single player campaign, which the original Battlefront didn't have, and it's good. It's not the best in the world. There are some missions which are quite bad. A lot of it is kind of paying lip service to the fans of Star Wars, so there's a lot of kind of odd bits where it'll, just for no reason at all, there'll be a level that Luke Skywalker appears in, because one of the main story follows characters who haven't been seen in Star Wars before, but every now and then one of the characters will drop down to a planet that Luke Skywalker just coincidentally happens to be on, so Luke Skywalker will interact with them for a bit and then they'll go away again, and then there'll be another cutscene where Princess Leia turns up and says, "I want you to find Han Solo," and then you go, alright, so I'm playing as him now. So there's a lot of kind of pretty blatant shoehorning the classic Star Wars characters in there to justify playing as them. But it's fun. I mean, it's fun. For a lot of the stages are fun. There are some bad ones. The Luke Skywalker one in particular is pretty boring at times. There's a bit where you've got to the guy's trying to open a gate, and you're having to defend him from all these bugs, like an almost feeling a seemingly endless stream of bugs, and you're using force powers and using the force isn't anywhere near as fun when you're just using it on bugs instead of humans. So that bit lasts far too long. It's just like an annoying like support quest where the person you're accompanying has to do something. It reminded me of the old days of GoldenEye when you had to help Boris hack into the computer while you were shooting spies. It's just that kind of garbage. But then the other stages are really good. There's some great shooting sections in it where you're flying various Star Wars vehicles. There's some really cool battle stages. The single player is fine. It's a proper 6-7 out of 10 story. It looks the part, looks amazing on an Xbox One X if you're playing that in 4K. It looks fantastic, sounds great. Single player I've got no problems with. Multiplayer I can see where there are more issues there, because multiplayer is obviously where the loot boxes come into it. There's the main multiplayer battle thing. There are times where you can play as a hero, and some heroes have to be bought with currency, and that currency originally had to be bought, but until EA turned that off. So for now the only way you can get it is by grinding, but to be honest, there are some modes which help grinding better than others. There's a heroes kind of mode, heroes and villains I think it's called, off the top of my head I need to check, where it's a 4-on-4 mode where there's 4 people playing the goodies and 4 people playing the baddies, and you get to choose between them. And yeah, it randomly chooses one villain and one hero, and each team of 4 has to go and kill that particular villain or hero before the other one dies, and then when one dies it randomly chooses the other one, so every now and then you'll be the target and you have to avoid being killed. And that's actually quite a fun mode. It's the fact there's only 4-on-4 means it's a lot easier to stand out as a hero in it. The fact you get to play as notable characters instead of just generic stormtroopers and stuff, and more importantly, because there's fewer enemies in it, fewer opponents in it, you get to kill a lot more, and that lets you level up a lot quicker, to the point that you get extra credits for leveling up, and those credits go towards unlocking the characters that everyone was complaining about not being able to unlock. If you play this heroes and villains mode for just a couple of hours, you'll get so many credits that you can unlock loads of stuff. The big scandal was that Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, when the game originally came out, were going to take 38 hours each to unlock. I unlocked Luke Skywalker within an hour and a half playing this heroes and villains mode, because you can level up really quickly in it, and I'm not even that good at multiplayer shooters, but for whatever reason I'm really good at not really good, but I think this game helps you be really good, especially if you've got a character with a lightsaber like Rey or someone like that, or even Darth Maul, who's quite easy to get. If you run up to someone with a lightsaber and just swing like a madman, there's a good chance you'll take them down, so killing people is quite easy in this. So yeah, there are ways around the snidey microtransaction type kind of system that's been put in there, and obviously this is based on the current version of the game. I didn't play it when it was going through all the nonsense and before EA took away the microtransactions and rebalanced it. This review is based on what the game is like now. As it is right now, it's fine. I've got no issues with it. There are still loot boxes in there, and I'm not a big fan of those, and it's still chucking daily loot boxes at you because it's desperate to make you think, hey, don't worry, loot boxes are fine. But don't worry about it, just resist them. You don't need them to enjoy the game. I've put loads of hours into this without ever feeling the need to buy another thing. Like I say, I don't even know if you can just now, because it looks like all the microtransactions have been taken out. Maybe they haven't, I'm not sure, but for now I've never felt the inclination to put more money in, and I've been having a blast with it. So maybe worth giving Star Wars Battlefront 2 another look. I've certainly been enjoying it, and as it is just now in its current state, it's fine. It's a solid game. It's not the greatest Star Wars game ever made, but it's good now, and I've been enjoying it, I'm not ashamed to say. So there you go. Up next, WWE Mayhem on mobile phones. Your cellular communication device now hosts a WWE fighting game. This is a kind of arcadey style game, similar to WWE All Stars, which came out years and years ago, in which your superstars you choose are more kind of bulky and more kind of cartoony than usual. It's a basic kind of combat game where you tap to do weak attacks, swipe right to do strong attacks, and then hold your finger on the left hand side of the screen to block enemy attacks. So the aim is to block their attacks, land your attacks, and then build up your finishers. If you can then use finishers to reverse finishers, so you build up at like 3 levels. There's level 1, level 2 and level 3 finishers, and your opponent does the same. And if they do a finisher that's stronger than yours, you're stuffed. If they do a finisher that's the same level as yours, you can then use up your finisher to reverse it and all that. It's very basic. You can do tag team matches, which mix things up a wee bit, and that kind of makes things a tiny wee bit more interesting. And obviously there's like 6 different types of wrestlers, so it makes a kind of Pokemon style system where one type's strong against the other, etc, etc. At this kind of early stage, there's not a lot to do in there. There's lots of events which are appearing on a daily basis. There's like a Royal Rumble event just now and a Raw 25 event to kind of tie in with stuff that's happening in the real world's WWE. But these events, for the most part, are currently just, here are 14 matches in a row, pick 3 of your guys and play through them. And it's hard to get through them all, not because it's difficult, but just to find the interest in doing it, because the battle system is so basic. It's a real grind to go through 14 matches at a time for an event, when all 14 fights are really similar. On very rare occasions it'll throw in like a hardcore match, which is just exactly the same, except the finishers are replaced with moves where you throw stairs at people or chairs, and other than that it's the same game. So it needs to get mixed up a wee bit. It's like many mobile games, it's based on loot boxes, but they're fairly generous in this one. There's 1, 2, 3 and 4 star superstars, and I've only been playing it a week or so and I've already got 3 3-star ones, so that's not bad for a game of this ilk, again having not spent any money on it. So that's fine. That's WWE Mayhem. It's as a start, it's okay. I've been enjoying it a bit, but it does feel quite limited at this point, and they're going to have to add a lot more to it in the coming months to keep people's interest, because already my interest is waning. But for now it's an okay start. So that's WWE Mayhem on mobile. Let's move back to Switch for the last couple. Mom Hid My Game is a really bizarre game in which your mum has hidden your Game Boy, or it looks more like a DS actually, and you have to try and get it back. There's 40 odd, 50 odd levels in this game, and they start fairly simple. Like it's basically a point and click style thing where set in either 1 or 2 rooms depending on the level, and you've got to basically try tapping things to see if they help you find the game. And sometimes they're basic, like your DS is under a couch, so you've got to grab a broom and use the broom to kind of go under the couch and kind of scoop it out. But as you go along, the puzzles get more and more kind of elaborate and start getting a bit surreal as well. There's some weird kind of Monty Python type ones where there's one in particular where there's a gap in the floor in front of the cupboard where your DS is, and if you stand on the gap you fall through it. So what you do is you go to the next room, put a fly on your mum's leg, your mum gets shocked, the shock bubble that comes out is the same shape as the hole, so you take the shock bubble and put it on the hole and can then cross over that, which is a bit bizarre. I had fun with it. The music is fantastic, it's just daft. Some of the puzzle solutions are just stupid, the animation's funny, it looks rubbish, but and it deliberately looks rubbish, so it's funny for that reason. I had a good time with it. The only issue is it's quite short. It'll only take you an hour or two to beat every level. The ending is bizarre. It's got like this really weird attempt at a sentimental ending, which is weird, and then it unlocks a wee kind of mini game for you, which isn't really that great. So you're paying more for the joke than anything else, and it'll take you an hour. After an hour or two, you're not really going to go back to it because the puzzle solutions are always the same, and they're not massively complicated puzzles. So that's that. It's fun if you've got the cash spare for it. You'll have fun with it, but it's not. It's got very little depth, if any depth at all. It's a joke game, and if you're prepared to put up the money just to have a laugh with it, then get stuck in. And finally, we've got Arcade Archives versus Super Mario Bros. Arcade Archives is a series by Hamster Corporation. They've been doing this for many years on other systems, where they release old arcade games for play again, and they've been doing it for a while on the Switch with the ACA Neo Geo series, where they've been taking loads of old Neo Geo arcade games, and there's loads, maybe 30 or 40 of those already on the Switch, but recently they did a deal with Nintendo to start doing Nintendo games on there, so for the very first time you can buy Nintendo arcade games. And they've already released Versus Mario Brothers, which is cool, but Versus Super Mario Brothers is the first big deal. This is the first time ever that this kind of alternative version of Super Mario Bros. Has ever been made available to buy for anyone other than arcade owners wanting to buy a new cabinet. So this is an enormous deal for Nintendo kind of historians like myself. It's based to an extent on obviously it's based on Super Mario Bros. The NES game, but there's a lot of modifications to it to make it trickier for arcade players. And so obviously, so that fans of the game at home couldn't just go to the arcades and just spend forever playing it. A lot of the game is different. So when you get to, for example, World 4, and use the warp zone there, in the NES game takes you to World 6, 7 and 8, whereas here it doesn't. And the minus world that was in Super Mario Brothers has been taken out. As you get further on, a load of the levels are completely different. Some of the levels are based on ones from the Lost Levels instead, the kind of harder Mario sequel, the Japanese Mario 2. So it gets harder later on. It's a nice kind of remix of Super Mario Brothers. I love it. I would obviously still rather have the original and best Super Mario Brothers on Switch, and that'll come eventually with Virtual Console. But for now, this is a really interesting game to have. If you're interested in Nintendo's history and you've played Super Mario Bros. A lot but haven't played this one, this is a cool way of seeing how the arcade version of it played. There's enough differences there to make you go, oh, okay, that's quite cool. I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it. Super Mario Bros. Is my favourite game of all time. So being able to play being able to legally buy and own a different version of it rather than the same Virtual Console one every year is brilliant. It's not as good, I don't think, as the original, but it's a lovely wee kind of alternative version of it. I really like it. So there we go. 10 more games that you may or may not wish to purchase for your own video game, home console entertainment systems, or indeed cellular communication device in the case of WWE Mayhem. Hope you like that. Please do like and subscribe and do all the usual YouTube shenanigans you're supposed to. Visit TireOldHack.com for more coverage coming soon. And if there's any games you'd like to see me cover, please do let me know. Until then, I'll catch you on the flip-flop with another review roundup very soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers, bye-bye.